While Chemfuel barrels seem like a great idea when it comes to area denial and base defense, they can be a little tricky to use. Pairing them up with IEDs seems to be a logical choice, as Chemfuel barrels lack the ability to detonate by themselves, but for all the Chemfuel that goes into making them, if they're not positioned properly, then at best they're only going to manage to slow the advance of an enemy raid, as opposed to defeating it entirely. While their inability to detonate by themselves might seem like a drawback, for pretty obvious reasons, enemy raiders will never try to attack Chemfuel barrels by themselves. So this makes it very easy for us to lure the enemy into an area filled with Chemfuel barrels. In fact, raiders will go on blanking those bright red flammable containers right up until the moment where you decide to detonate them. With the enemy enclosed by fire and explosions on all sides, there is simply no escaping this fiery trap of doom. Despite the high resource cost of filling a huge area with Chemfuel barrels, I think it's safe to say that this raid is toast. While we have a working concept for the ultimate Chemfuel barrel trap, I think we need to make it smaller and a bit more efficient. I started off with some non-flammable building materials, and then I quickly threw together a simple building with a weird looking path that winds its way through the centre of the structure. We want to build this trap in such a way that it can hold the entire tailback of a large enemy raid. Every raid in the game basically looks the same, with a long line of gullible chumps and a few stragglers at the rear of the column. We can easily take advantage of this predictable formation by building some internal walls into our trap. Any raid that tries to pass through this building will now be forced to take the longest possible route before they can reach the other side. The next logical step is obviously to line the walls with dozens of Chemfuel barrels, making sure to pack in as many as you can possibly fit. And then get ready to call in a raid. At the exit of the building, place a single high explosive IED as a detonator. While raiders usually smash anything and everything of value, even these unwashed peasants aren't stupid enough to punch Chemfuel barrels, with the very shape of this building forcing the entire enemy raid into a tightly packed space filled with explosives. All they've got to do now is to kindly trigger the detonator. As the Chemfuel barrels explode, we unleash a deadly fireworm that snakes its way through the building, throwing corpses and garbage all over the place. Sensing that the enemy wishes to flee, the explosion races after them, denying them any escape from their fiery demise. Anybody still trapped inside of this burning maze will stay trapped inside until they're quite dead. As awesomely effective as our trap is, I have to wonder if it is wasted on filthy tribals, as it's not really that difficult to kill peasants the old-fashioned way, with like guns and harsh language. So I thought it was a good choice to try out our deadly fire trap on those pretentious space Romans. While these empty-headed feudal cosplayers come equipped with power armor and personal shields, that's just their way of telling us that they're a bit frightened by our guns. Although I had to wonder if all those shields and armor might make them more resistant to our fire trap. And as we unleash the fireworm, their armor and shields seem to resist the deadly blaze. Naturally, we gun down those who try to flee. Despite the fact that their power armor made them practically fireproof, they still ended up running away. While this fire barrel trap might not have killed that many of their number, it gave us a record number of prisoners from just a single raid. So what would happen if we tried this fire trap against an opponent that actually possesses some chest hair? The Orion Company are pretty badass, with their guys coming pre-equipped with bionics that provide major buffs to their speed. You can only really fight these guys off if you've installed some pretty beefy defenses. And even then, you're sure to lose a few colonists whenever they show up. Just to prove this point, I sent my slaves to defend an outpost that was, in all truth, completely indefensible. They seemed to carry a lot more rocket launchers than other raiders, and while their rockets are a bit nasty, the OC defense rifles they carry are the most powerful assault rifles in the universe. They're basically a PPSH-41 upgraded to fire plasma instead of bullets. As such, our slaves didn't stand a chance against the Orion Corporation, who carried them away for them only to be enslaved again, which was almost as funny as it was annoying. While our slave soldiers only managed to kill one of their guys, this did give us a sneak peek at their tricked out bionics. Almost every member of the Orion Corporation comes equipped with an Orion exoskeleton. But because you have to use such overwhelming firepower to defeat these guys, it doesn't usually leave us with a lot of prisoners at the end of the raid. I was still slightly annoyed that they had stolen all of my slaves. I mean, I would probably have just had them murdered anyway. But it doesn't change the fact that those slaves were still my rightful property. I rearmed the fire trap and called in another raid by the Orion Corporation, with some hope that they might be so kind as to supply us with plenty of their priceless exoskeletons. Once the detonations had ripped through the building, I ordered the artillery to bombard the area with about 20 harmless fire foam shells. I had my guys shoot through our own defences, so we could cut off any Orion Corporation guys who might still try to escape. Once we were done mopping up the stragglers, we were free to capture all of the survivors. They would probably have preferred to be left in a burning building than face the fate we had in store for them. As soon as our captives were stable, I got straight to harvesting their tasty spines. Obviously, this would leave them completely paralysed, and while I could have easily cured this ailment by simply replacing their Orion exoskeletons with bionic spines, I was still yet to truly enact my vengeance for the prior theft of my slaves. I banished 2 of the prisoners to an island, but the island itself was a little bit too small for all of the prisoners to fit, so we dragged them from their beds in the middle of the night, only to have them entombed within a fetching series of oubliettes. Once we bricked up the entrances, word quickly travelled to the Orion Corporation that their people were in dire need of rescue. Those gullible fools once again charged into the fire barrel trap of doom. Unbeknownst to the invaders, I had loaded this particular fire barrel trap with an even deadlier surprise than usual. At last, we would have our vengeance for the outrageous theft of our slaves. As the would-be liberators felt the full force of anti-grain fury, any hope of rescue died with them. If we use our Chemfuel barrels properly, they can provide us with endless hours of fun. Just remember that no amount of explosions can ever amount to overkill. If you enjoyed this video, then please be sure to leave a like. My PC has been stuttering for about a week now, which made it basically impossible to record anything on screen. So I made this video from spare footage I had on my desktop. It turns out that I've been making these videos on a 5-year-old graphics card, and that graphics card wasn't even very good 5 years ago. So yeah, I've got a better one on the way in the post. Now all I need to do is update my video editing software from 2012 and we'll be set. If you want to see more content like this, then please be sure to subscribe, as I'll be releasing plenty more videos like this in the near future.